There's a new desktop monitor in town for Mac users. The Asus ProArt 5K PA27JCV, very catchy name, has very similar specs to Apple's Studio Display at just half the cost. Let's take a look. Since the early 2010s, Apple has gone all in on Retina displays, screens with double or even triple standard pixel density. That means the pixels are so small your eyes can't discern each individual one, so text, images, videos all look super high resolution and super crisp. Apple builds Retina displays into all their products, from the iPhone, iPad, Apple Watch, MacBook, iMac, and more. But the rest of the industry hasn't followed in Apple's footsteps. So if you have a Mac Mini or a Mac Studio, or you just want a desktop display to dock to your MacBook, your options are limited. You want at least a 4K screen at 24 inches, a 5K screen at 27 inches, or a 6K screen above 30 inches. Apple's own Studio Display and Pro Display XDR are priced way above what most normal people are willing to spend, which makes any third-party Retina displays a hot commodity among Mac enthusiasts. Enter the Asus ProArt 5K PA27JCV, and rest assured I'm not going to keep calling it by its full name throughout the entire video. Its design is mostly pretty handsome. It's sleek and black with these silver accents. It should blend in nicely with any Mac setup. The slim black bezel nicely frames and emphasizes the gorgeous 27-inch screen. 4K panels are a dime a dozen at this size, but a 5K screen gives it a resolution of 2560 by 1440 pixels, making it a Retina display. Compared to a standard 1080p screen, it has a third more space horizontally and vertically. There's no aluminum or glass though. The display is clad entirely in plastic. If you grab the display with two hands and flex, it will loudly creak. At half the price of a Studio Display, the savings have to come from somewhere. Along the bottom right of the display, you'll see a row of buttons. The display is almost entirely controlled with one button on the far right, which clicks and acts like a four-way D-pad for navigating the menu. When you first summon this menu, the other 5 buttons can be used as shortcuts to the other features, but they aren't labeled. You have to match their function to the list shown above the button. Click the menu button a second time to actually bring up the full menu. It's needlessly complicated. Asus reassured me that their customers like these buttons, but they didn't ask me. I think they're pointless. The arm is solid and incredibly sturdy. It smoothly slides up and down. Adjustable height comes at no extra cost. Imagine that. I really like sliding it up to hide the camera mount that I keep behind it, and sliding it down when it's time to record a video or a live stream. It also tilts forward and backward, much more than other monitors I've used, and even swivels left and right. The raising, lowering, tilting, and swiveling all feels really solid. It's nice and smooth, and the display stays put wherever you set it. The weak point is the rotation. You can put the monitor in a portrait orientation, which might be useful if you have it in a large, multi-display setup. But because it freely rotates anywhere between 0 and 90 degrees, it wobbles a lot. If you just touch it on the corner, it wobbles dramatically and might even settle on an angle that's slightly off kilter. I really wish you could lock it out of rotating. Nobody wants their monitor at 6 degrees. You either want it at 0 or you want it at 90. Imagine if the connector didn't rotate at all. It was fixed in place, but the monitor could be clipped onto it in either orientation. That would solve the problem. Or at the very least, rotating the monitor should take much more force than it does. Every display has that one setting you need to turn off out of the box. On TVs, it's usually something related to motion smoothing. The Asus ProArt 5K has a feature called dynamic dimming that you'll want to turn off right away. Dynamic dimming tries to make bright parts of the screen extra bright. OLED displays do this best because each pixel is individually lit. But this is not an OLED display. The display is lit in large vertical sections, which makes everything above and below the content overblown. Apple's own mini LED displays have this problem too. It's called display bloom. It's most noticeable if you have a completely black wallpaper with a single, small white window in the center of the screen. You can see the space above and below the window isn't as dark as the rest. Dynamic dimming also washes out other white areas of the image, which you can see affecting the icons in the dock. To turn off this feature, open the menu by clicking the prominent button on the right, click it again to actually open the menu, click down to the Settings tab, and here you can turn off dynamic dimming. Once you turn off dynamic dimming, the picture quality is fantastic. It's bright and the colors pop. It doesn't get quite as bright as the studio display, reaching only 400 nits instead of 600, but you can still see it clearly even on a sunny day with lots of light pouring into my office. In Ohio, that happens at least several days in a year. It technically meets the minimum requirements for certified HDR or high dynamic range, but instead I would think of it as being a really nice SDR panel, or standard dynamic range. If you enable HDR in macOS system settings, HDR videos will be a little brighter, but the rest of the screen will be all washed out. I have the display set to the DCI P3 preset with brightness at 100%. I have my Mac set to the Display P3 color profile, and I've been very impressed. Colors are vibrant, blacks are super dark. Cheap matte displays can look blurry and struggle with contrast. The Asus ProArt 5K has a special Lux Pixel coating that removes reflections while minimizing the side effects. It's still incredibly crisp. You can make out each individual pixel if you get close enough. And as I mentioned, the colors really stand out. The ProArt 5K also packs a variety of extra ports. It can act as a USB hub and a KVM switch between two computers. Setting it up is a little confusing. The two USB-C shaped ports next to the HDMI plug let you use the two USB-A ports and the two other ports on the bottom. But even if you're only using the display with one computer, you can't use either of these USB-C ports for plugging in peripherals. All they do is connect your computer to the hub. But you can plug each of these into a different computer to share the peripherals plugged into the 4 other ports. I've had some spotty results with the plugs. For some reason, my keyboard doesn't like the USB-C port on the bottom, but I also used it to charge up an iPhone, and the USB-A ports to charge and sync some old iPods. I like how Apple displays have the ports facing out the back rather than out the bottom. It's easier to see them and plug things in and manage the cables, but it is more expensive to make them that way. Here at the end is a quick lightning round of various quirks and features. Because the display supports multiple inputs, you can see multiple devices at once. It supports picture-in-picture, along with tiling 2 or 3 inputs side by side. That can be handy if you're working with multiple computers and only have one display, but setting it up is a little clunky because it's buried in the on-screen menu, and making any changes blacks out the screen for a few seconds. It technically has an ambient light sensor that should, in theory, match the brightness and color temperature of the room. I found that it vastly overcompensated, making the display far too dark and yellow, so I immediately turned it off. Compared to the studio display, you're missing a built-in camera. The Asus ProArt has a built-in speaker, but it's kind of terrible. When you wake your Mac up from sleep, it takes about 5 seconds for the image to appear on the screen. It's just a beat slower than typing in a password from muscle memory, or waiting for Unlock with Apple Watch to do its thing. When your Mac goes idle, the monitor shows a very pleasant black screen with a subtle USB-C no signal message that stays on for just a moment before it goes idle too. But weirdly, over HDMI, the same message appears in a harsh, bright blue. So in conclusion, if money is no object, the Apple Studio Display is still the best choice for a Mac because of all the premium features, the extra 10% that makes Apple products that much nicer. But money is rarely no object. If you want the same super high resolution, desktop screen size, and similar industry standard color accuracy without burning a hole in your pocket, we have a new second place princess. If you want an adjustable stand and a matte finish, you'd really be spending $22.99 on the Studio Display, nearly 3 times as much. and I'm told it also comes with a great 3-year warranty with a rapid replacement policy. It's a great 5K desktop monitor at an unbelievable price. If you'd like to purchase it, you can click our affiliate link here or in the video description. Remember to like and subscribe. I'm Griffin Jones with Cult of Mac.